Hey everyone, so I just filmed a video about the different things that I keep on hand for my girls. Well, one of my girls, Lucy, has an upper respiratory infection, so I thought this would be a really good time to talk about upper respiratory infections, otherwise known as URIs, as they are a huge part of a rat's life. I'm going to start this video off by saying you may find all kinds of answers that you're hoping for online, but I'm going to be very honest in saying medicine is the only true way to treat and make sure a rat heals properly from an upper respiratory infection. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is an upper respiratory infection. Rats have something in them called mycoplasma. It is a bacteria that all rats have, and when their immune system is weaker, they can have mycoplasma flare-ups with porphyrin and have an upper respiratory infection. Now porphyrin, which is a very hard word to say correctly, is the red stuff that you see around the eyes and the nose that kind of looks like blood sometimes. You can see right now that Lulu does not have those symptoms. However, you can hear and listen to her that she does have something going on in her lungs. Here's Lulu. You can see her breathing. She's still acting like herself, but you can see her breathing really clearly. See if you can hear her. I need to find where the speaker is. You can see that she doesn't have any red around her nose or eyes. Okay, that's Lulu. I'm going to show you her sister. Her sister's from the same place, and this is what she looks like. You can see her breathing is not as prominent. Oh, you have to stay here. This is Thimble. You can tell that a rat has an upper respiratory infection when you hear clicking, squeaking, or any kind of noise coming from their lungs. When you see those flare-ups of the red around their eyes or their nose, if they just seem really sleepy all the time, and that's not their norm. If they don't want to eat as much, or if they seem to be breathing really heavily, really quickly, or really slowly. A change in breathing is a huge sign. For Lulu, we caught this getting worse because her breathing quickened more. She was taking in big, deep breaths that were very quick. It was like... I would consider upper respiratory infections an emergency for rats because they can get worse in a matter of 12 to 24 hours. One tool that I like to have on hand, especially if you're a newer rat owner and you're just not sure, I like to have a stethoscope. You can put it on and you can listen to your girls. You want to look for clicking, you want to look for any squeaks or any noise. It can be hard to figure out where to go to figure out how to listen to them. Usually on the side like this, you can hear. And you can tell it's an upper respiratory infection because the noise happens when she's breathing. It's a little squeak. This started as a click. That's how I first caught it. She was acting a little bit off, and there was a click to her very initial upper respiratory infection symptoms. There is something called new home sneezes. If you have new baby rats, it is very common for them to sneeze and sneeze a lot. They say that one of the first signs of an upper respiratory infection is sneezing. I don't always find this to be the case because honestly, my girls sneeze a lot. And this might be true for other people, and that may be a telltale sign, but for me it has not been. So if you have new rats, it is so common for them to sneeze for 2 weeks at a time. My girl Tink sneezed for a whole month before she kind of settled in and stopped her new home sneezes. That was one of the reasons why I thought she had an upper respiratory infection when she was little, because she sneezed for so long. Sneezing can also occur from bedding that is just super dusty. My favorite bedding of choice is Fresh News. Some people use fleece. If you use fleece, make sure you change it often because that can cause an upper respiratory infection. Shaved bedding or even paper bedding can be risky too. You just need to make sure you're cleaning it often and getting as much dust out as possible. If you're not sure if your rat has an upper respiratory infection, because honestly, new baby rats can, they typically can come from breeders who might not be breeding them properly or might be in an area that they just weren't kept well. That's when you look for the red porphyrin, or you look for the difference in breathing or being lethargic. If you can catch an upper respiratory infection early, that is the best case scenario. You absolutely want to do that. As soon as you think that they have an upper respiratory infection, you take them to the vet. That's what I do with all my girls. I typically always have Baytril on hand, so I will give them a dose, which is 0.1 milliliters or 1 drop of Baytril, and then I'll take them to the vet to get it checked out. So I'm going to quickly go over the medicine that you might get for an upper respiratory infection. I want to give a little disclaimer here too and say that medicine is prescription based. It needs to be prescribed by a vet. If you are finding it online, I do not trust the quality of it or the dosing or what you have to do to make it appropriate for rats. Try really hard to find a vet in your area. We drive 45 minutes to see our vet, and the wait time can range from 10 minutes to 2 hours sometimes because they're just a really top vet. When you have a baby rat, they can't always have Baytril. Baytril is usually meant for rats, I believe, 3 months or older. It might be even older than that. They might give you doxycycline or tetracycline. Doxycycline, my rat Opal bit us if we tried to feed it to her. Tetracycline is really grainy and they just don't seem to love it, but there are levels of doses. So doxycycline, tetracycline, and then Baytril. Baytril is one of your powerhouse antibiotics. I find that my girls tend to recover from upper respiratory infections with just Baytril alone, but a lot of rat owners will say that Baytril along with doxycycline is best. I've never personally had to do that. With Lulu though, we've had a hard time getting rid of this and making sure it doesn't turn into pneumonia. So what we are giving her is chloramphenicol, which is an even higher level antibiotic above Baytril. You do need to wear a glove when administering it. It's something you don't want to give long term, but it is something that we have on hand from our vet, and our vet okayed us to give it to her so that we didn't have to go to the emergency vet office last night. I can tell you vets have been so busy with COVID, so it's been helpful to have this stuff on hand. But Baytril should be given for at least 10 days, if not longer than that. We tend to give our rats the medicine for a week and then go back to the vet for a recheck. Give them it for another week and go back to the vet for a recheck. We've usually stayed on Baytril for at least 14 days, which is 2 weeks. So now I have Hazel, not to confuse you with Lulu. One more caveat that I'll put in is my vet is an expert in pocket pets and rats, but not all vets are that way. And I feel like it's hard to find those vets. If you cannot find them, it is best to go to the vet informed to ask for these things. You might have to say, my rat has an upper respiratory infection. I can see it by these symptoms. They're sneezing, they're squeaking or clicking in her breathing. There's porphyrin around her eyes and nose, and she needs Baytril. Another thing to do is you can call a vet and ask if they treat rats. If they say no, ask if they know anyone who will treat pet rats. They're an exotic animal in a sense, so not everybody really treats them. Your rat is not going to spread their upper respiratory infection to any of your other rats. It's not something where you need to remove her and put her in a new location, or him. I say her because I only have female rats. But you can keep them in the same area. However, I would look through your cage, through your free range area, whatever it is, and try to pinpoint why they got an upper respiratory infection. Some rats are just more prone. For instance, Lulu, when we got her, she and her sister were from breeders who had a candle in their breeding room. It was a tiny little laundry room, and they both had an upper respiratory infection when we got them. So they have just got a weaker immune system. They're not bred necessarily properly. So that's just something that we deal with. But you can tell she is so sweet. Such a sweet girl. I would check your bedding, make sure you're changing it often enough. If their pee is left alone in a cage, it turns into ammonia, and that is one way that they easily get this infection. Look to see if they're sleeping under fleece, if you have fleece or blankets, because they cocoon themselves in there. And then after a while, they're just breathing in the same air or breathing in even where they peed, and that causes an upper respiratory infection. Check for dusty bedding. Make sure the cage is cleaned every week or 2 weeks, depending on how many rats you have. This is something I didn't think to say, but I want to make sure I say it. Rats are so sensitive to any scent. We do not have candles in our home. I don't use essential oils in our home anymore as a diffuser. If you have harsh chemicals like pine sol, or if someone smokes in your house, that is not the best environment for your rats. A proper cage is another one. Rats should never, ever, 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 ever be kept in fish tanks or any tank of any sort, even with the topper on the tank that is wire. Your best rat cages are the Rat Manor for 2 rats, a double Critter Nation for any amount of rats, they will love you, or just a Critter Nation. You need a cage that is appropriate for your girls. I find the Rat Manor is a really good starter cage, and then moving up to the Critter Nation just for ease of use and cleaning, opening the doors, so much space for the girls. There are other cages out there too that are great, you just have to look for them. You may want to be a little bit careful with this, but if you feel like your rat is really having a hard time breathing, you can turn a hot shower on for a little bit, like 5-10 minutes, turn it off, and then bring your rat in the room for maybe 2 minutes at a time or 3 minutes. You don't want it to overwhelm them, but that is a way to kind of break up some of that mucus. So I think that's kind of it for this video. I feel like I'm all over the place. I'm not exactly a rat expert. I've just had rats for a long enough time where I've experienced these things, and I'm talking from my experiences. If you have questions, leave them down below, or you can direct message me at jess.anns on Instagram. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to catch my next ones. I'll see you next time. Hey Lulu, come here. Lulu. Lulu, baby girl. Where'd you go? If you're Lulu and you know what, come over here. I see you. I see you. Come here. Come here. Hi, baby girl. Okay. You girls want treats? Who wants treats? Come here. Good job letting me film. You girls have been really good. Yay! If you're curious, these are Little Crunchies apple sweet potato from Gerber. There you are, Abby. Willow's not in there, right? No, Willow's right there. Okay, girlies. I'm gonna go edit that video so it can be up.